Now, moving on to supplier readiness. And when I say supplier readiness, I'm talking about the ability of your suppliers of parts and materials to provide the data that you need in order to meet your reporting obligations on your product. Okay. So supply chain readiness is not there. As of April of this year, which is this month, right? Only 28% of suppliers contacted by GreenSoft to receive SCIP details from them were able to provide the data we needed. For the other 72%, we had to resolve those ourselves using our engineers evaluating the components themselves and doing their own analysis. Right? So don't think that you can just send your suppliers to a portal and you're going to get a good response. If you just blast out your suppliers with a request to fill this data into a complicated template and put it in a portal, 28% of them that have the data will probably do that. The other 70% that don't have the data are just not going to show up, right? So just keep that in mind. The other thing here that's been faced by the industry is SVHC concentrations. Many suppliers have not adequately validated this, right? We've been trading SVHC data for years, but what happens is that suppliers have said, okay, well, I see there's lead in my solder at 85%. So rather than do an article analysis and determine what it is at the article level, I'm just going to assume it's over threshold at the article level, and I'm going to make a declaration that's lead in my product. Now we come back and say, okay, you've told us lead is over threshold in this product. We need to know how much, and which article, and which material, and what the category codes are. Can you give us the SCIP information? And they come back and go, oh, well, we had to go back and redo our analysis now that you need that kind of detail. And we found that actually this part is not over threshold, and we've been over-reporting all along, simply because we haven't done this adequately. So that's been a major issue, is that we go to see, hey, give us the SCIP data, we find out the SCIP concentrations haven't even been calculated yet, that they've been just reporting based on material level. Also, another challenge is that reference IDs are not uniformly available. Some non-EU suppliers, they can't even make the submission, so they can't provide you the reference IDs, right? So, and they're not yet able to understand how to clearly communicate the SCIP details in absence of that ID. Some of them still believe they don't have to provide it because they're not an EU company. And so we have this kind of, you can't rely, oh, give me your SCIP reference ID. They're not going to be able to provide that. So we have to be able to process outside of the reference IDs. And throughout all of this, we have an obligation to notify. So as soon as we find an SVHC is present in the product and we're placing that product on the market, we have an obligation to notify the database. This is true even if all SCIP parameters are not yet received from the supplier, or all the suppliers have not yet responded. So we have to be collecting this data from the supplier, submitting it to the database while we continue to push the supplier to provide more information that we need. That's a very difficult thing, and it's been a really big challenge for a lot of players in the industry. From a supplier readiness perspective, just know not all suppliers can support SCIP data requests. Be prepared to process items for SCIP parameters yourself when the supplier cannot get you what you need. Make sure you're covering once an article when you're doing the data collection and validation, right? You don't want invalid SVHC concentrations loaded. You don't want inaccurate article as such as listed in your notifications. And you definitely don't want to be submitting products that don't need submissions. You don't want to be loading something into the world and saying, hey, this product contains hazardous substances if it doesn't, simply because your suppliers were too lazy to do their calculations. Qualify all the SVHC concentrations, all the material and mixture categories. Don't assume that they have done the SCIP analysis correctly. Many of your suppliers have not done this correctly, and be prepared for multiple contacts and conversations if you want accurate data, because you're going to have to go back and forth and have conversations with suppliers to get this done. That's what we've been having to do all along, is be the educator, help them understand what the requirements are, help review the data for them, show them what they've done wrong so they can correct it. And so that's the kind of process you're going to see as you go and try and resolve this kind of information with your supply chain.
Learn more by viewing the full-length video online at greensofttech.com/videos. Plus, learn about our environmental regulation solutions online at greensofttech.com.